Today I'm going to be discussing our most recent prompt that's been put on Moodle, which is whether or not the USA should provide foreign aid to countries that need it in lieu of supporting hungry people domestically. And I'm going to have to take the stance that if there are hungry people in the United States, then our priority should probably be those hungry people. Um, in saying that, I will say that there are certain exceptions to that rule. Certain things that need to be considered. For example, in the event of like a natural disaster, something like that, where a group of people has been displaced in some way or, you know, terribly harmed in some way, then the USA probably does have some sort of moral obligation to help that particular group of people, regardless of where they are in the world. Maybe not obligation, that might not be the word, but I believe morally that we should do it. Help those that just terribly need it. In other countries where hunger has been an issue for a long time, famine on and off, cyclical seasons of famine and starvation, and it's not the fault of some unpredictable natural disaster, then in that case, it is probably simply a systemic problem that's not going to be solved by us throwing money at them because that's just not how it works. So in events like that, or cases like that, I would say that the only morally acceptable thing to do would be to offer something besides money. Um, I'm not saying that we should go in and replace a country's government because we've tried that and we've all seen how well that works out. Um, but some sort of systemic solution to a obviously systemic problem is what's going to be required. But in a case like that, I would say that we have our own problems at home that need to be taken care of. Um, Before I go too much further into this, I will say my own personal philosophy. I know that it's not exactly the answer to this particular question, but my own personal philosophy is that we can do both. We can provide aid to people in countries that need it and still help the hungry that are living here in the United States, just by cutting spending on things that don't require as much spending. Um, I thought I could look up. I thought I could look up what we spent on defense last year. That was my plan, and then talk about that. But I apparently have lost internet connection on my laptop, and hopefully I'll have that back by the time I'm trying to post this. If not, that's going to be unfortunate. But yeah, we spent an enormous amount on the defense of the country, despite the fact that we already have a military that is 80 times larger than the world's second largest military. And while I'm not saying that a strong, even a hugely strong military is not necessary um, in the American system, just because we are expected to protect our allies and protect ourselves, maybe not that much, maybe not that huge of an amount of spending when there are people at home and abroad that are literally starving to death. Um, I know I got off on a bit of a tangent there, but this question has been posed to me and in the media and government debates, political debates, that sort of thing over and over again, whether we should help ourselves or help people abroad that are in difficult situations. Um, and we can honestly afford to do both. We really can. But strictly philosophically speaking, if the question is should we feed the hungry domestically or feed the hungry in foreign countries, my answer is going to have to be feed people living in the United States. If our countrymen are starving, I don't think that it is fair to them that we should go to a foreign country and try to provide aid to people that, while they need it, while they do need it, and while it is a good thing to be doing, um, it's still diverting resources away from people that need it in the United States. So those are my thoughts on that subject. Um, like I said, certain exceptions. I don't think that it is a situation that we can afford to be um, strictly analytical about. It's not something that we can look at robotically or heartlessly. Um, you have to take into consideration the uh, the amount of starvation, the amount of terrible conditions in a particular place before we can really uh, make a decision on that. For example, let's say there are people in the United States, a group of people that are what the book refers to as food insecure. Um, and while they are not starving, there are days where they worry about where their next meal is going to come from. Um, and let's say in, I don't know, Ghana, someplace like that. And before I talk about that, I should say I don't know very much about the socioeconomic conditions in Ghana, so maybe I shouldn't run my mouth about things I don't understand. But just for example, an underdeveloped country like that, and there are people who have been displaced out of their homes due to some terrible and tragic weather event, and then they've been hit by 7 years of famine, and the whole population is just starving. In that case, we probably do have a moral responsibility to help that group of people. So, yeah, that's what I'll conclude with. It does depend on the situation, but as a general rule, if there are people in the United States that need help, they should be a priority. So, yeah, thanks for watching, I guess.